What's up, everyone? Welcome to episode 76 of the Noizze Podcast, brought to you by Noizze.co.uk and sponsored by Stereo Brown Records. I am your host / your boy, Kris, and I'm joined, as ever, by my very good friend and Mr. Cynical himself, Samuel Lewis. Mate, how are you?
Feeling like Mr. Vulnerable himself after the events of the previous evening, but I'm okay, man. How about yourself?
Mate, I'm good, man. I'm so much better than the last time we did one of these. Like, if you remember how sunburnt I was, and like, you said to me, dude, I can like see pink around your face, because of the lighting where by my window here, like I look really pale. But even last time we did one of these, I was so burnt that you could see like pink around my forehead, man. I was like, I'm so glad it's calmed down in terms of the weather, mate. That was a vile week. That was.
Yeah, really, really tough, man. I mean, you said you over complain almost, don't you? Sound like I'm grateful, but
yeah,
I love warm weather. I love when I can go out in t-shirt and shorts. But man, stop it at 27 degrees at 10 o'clock at night. Just end it right there. That there's a line, and that is way beyond at that point.
Do you know what, man? Like, I think it maybe a week before, or maybe 2 weeks before, it was sports day, and I got really into it with the kids and stuff, and I was like running about and that, and it was only like 21 degrees, but mate, I was roasting. I went to this other staff members.
It's over an egg and spoon race.
Yeah, mate, I went to the staff members. I was like, I cannot believe how hot I am right now, because I obviously I had my suit on, and I was like running around getting involved in that. And I thought, this is the hottest I've ever been. This is by a mile, and that was at 20. That was at 21 degrees. That was. Mate, last week was then absolutely just insane, man. I couldn't believe the temperature. It's like, and I saw on the news that like we might be hitting 40 degrees on a regularity in British summers in the coming future because of climate change and stuff. Mate, imagine a regularity of 40 degrees in the summer, mate.
We have no social structure. We have no social structures in place to deal with that kind of heat.
No,
we're not the society at all to deal with that. Like. It's just not going to be feasible.
Mate, have you seen how in Qatar they kind of synthesize rain?
You're gonna have to explain that to me.
Mate,
what does that mean?
I saw a video like explaining it on Facebook. They get like, what's the best way of like describing? They get like drones in the air, and they're like the drones like put like electric shocks into the clouds. And it brings clouds together and like forces it to rain.
Oh, okay.
They do that in like Qatar and Dubai and stuff. I was seeing it on Facebook, and like, but the problem with that is they've got no drainage systems in like Qatar and Dubai. I say Qatar and Dubai are two different places, but they've got no drainage systems. So like when
they make it rain, drainage, there's nothing at all.
When it rains, like they make it rain, but the water just clogs up all the highways and stuff because they don't really account for like waterfall in their architecture when they're building things, because it so rarely rains there, especially obviously in their peak summer months. So they make it rain, but then it raining causes problems because they haven't got proper drainage systems set up in place. It's wild, dude. It's wild.
That is crazy. I know
see the video. I'm going to tag you in it so you can watch it, because obviously the video does a much better job of explaining than what I've just done. But it is, honestly, mate, believe it or not, honestly, mate, it is wild.
Yeah, they start the day at like school. They starts at like 6 a.m, doesn't it? It finishes at like 1 o'clock in the afternoon or something like that, because they can't have a school day between the hours of like 1 and 3 because it's just impossibly hot. I remember talking to a friend of mine that was teaching over there for like a year or so, and she was like, "Yeah, I'd be up at like 3-4 o'clock in the morning, but I'd be done by like 12:30, and I'd be sunbathing."
That is wild.
Because it's just you can't be teaching like linguistics at 1 o'clock and it's like 55 degrees. Like you've got to be just asleep or doing nothing or whatever. If it wasn't such a rich country and that can create all these facilities to handle it, like it would just be just an inhospitable environment, wouldn't it? Just be absolutely crazy to deal with. But yeah, I mean, we have drainage systems at least, and we are
download doesn't
still complete. Yeah, we are still, I think, completely incapable of handling any possibility of real hot weather. Like in the same way that snow appears to just stop everything that ever takes place for like 3 days, and then you see like places like America, like Chicago, that has like a foot of snowfall every winter without fail, and they have like a -25 wind chill. People just go to work. It's just
Get
no
on with it,
issue.
like, yeah.
Oh man, I'm not too optimistic about that potential future.
Is this the most off-kilter conversation we've ever had on the podcast? This is the furthest away from what we normally talk about that we've ever done, I think.
It's up there, but
Yeah.
we've done this before.
We do this, and we'll do it again. I've got no doubt. We are a fortnightly rock and metal podcast sponsored by Stonebrain Records. We're available on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you listen/watch podcasts. We will be there. Please subscribe whichever channel you are using to watch us on. That's the best way to support us. Follow us on Twitter at Noizze Podcast. Both me and Sam run that account. We are approaching 666 followers on Twitter. That'll be a moment for us. On this week's show, there's one piece of news that I'd like to discuss with Sam. And reviews are going to come from Lingua Ignota's new record, Sinner Get Ready, and the new Lorna Shore EP, and I Return To Nothingness. Plus, this week's Kris Meets is with Dude Trips bassist/vocalist Jamie Mathers. The Dude Trips are a band that I've liked for several years, man. Really, really cool emo rock band. They're playing the Powerfest in Cardiff, obviously sponsored by Noizze. They're a really great band, and catching up with Jamie for the first time, actually speaking to him and trying to get an idea of Fraser Bro, where the band came from, the ideas behind some of the music, the feelings that they're trying to get across at certain points of songwriting. Really, really cool stuff, man. So make sure you stick around at the end of the show for that. Sam, there is an awful piece of news to open the show with. Former SlipKnot drummer Joey Jordison passed away at the age of 46 this week. Oh, dude, I mean, so obviously you as the musician will speak about Joey Jordison's quality in much finer detail and depth than I would ever be able to. But I guess for me, the best way for me to describe how I feel about Joey Jordison is that I think for me and many others probably, SlipKnot were the first really heavy band that I ever loved. Like really heavy. Like obviously Metallica are heavy metal, Megadeth are heavy metal, Slayer are heavy metal, but SlipKnot are like a different beast of heavy metal. They're probably the closest thing to extreme metal that is massive. Do you know what I mean? Especially those first three albums, more specifically the first two, they're the closest thing to extreme metal that's ever been like stadium size huge. And for me, they were absolutely the first borderline extreme metal band that I fell in love with. And a lot of that was because of Joey Jordison's intensity. And I remember vividly the first time I ever heard SlipKnot's debut, and the second sick kicks in with those drums and they pick up the pace shout from Clown, and it all just comes to a head, and there's this explosion of sound and rhythm and fury. And Joey Jordison was an absolute vital cog in that. And I've seen videos of him performing live, and someone put up a video on YouTube, or someone discovered the video on YouTube where they played the London Astoria in 99, and Joey Jordison standing on his drum stool, like just staring out at the crowd while the scratches before Sick come in. And he's tilting his head to the side, stretching his arms out in the crowd. Like, so not one of the band have played a note yet, but the crowd are like unglued. They're just, the atmosphere looks absolutely like unbelievable. And I think that Joey Jordison's legacy in terms of metal drumming will live forever. I think that he really is one of the staples of 21st century musicianship. And he was a massive part of why SlipKnot became the biggest metal band of the 21st century. It's a tremendous loss that it really knocked me about. It really bothered me, especially the age of 46. I mean, come on, man, jeez. For yourself, dude, I mean, you were literally learning to play drums in your teens, which means that during that point, SlipKnot, Iowa and Volume 3 Subliminal Verses was still kind of fresh in people's memory. Obviously, Iowa came out in 2001, so you were learning to play the drums when you were 8. But I'm guessing, dude, once you hit 13, 14, 15, Joey Jordison and then Lars Ulrich were like and then Dave Lombardo, like your three absolute heroes that you would have done anything to emulate.
Yeah, literally. I bought black 8-head drumsticks to be like Joey. I bought pearl gear because he used pearl gear. I practiced 30-second drum note fills because that was what he was brilliant at. I bought a double kick pedal to be able to play like eyeless. He a hero, not just for me, but for an entire generation of metal fans. He was, and this is such a rare thing for a drummer as well. He was a musician that stood out to people that weren't musicians. You could, it was abundantly clear that Joey Jordison was just incredible to people that had never picked up a pair of drumsticks, people that had never noticed anything about music prior. SlipKnot are a unique percussive band. The drums are a central figure to their sound, and they happen to have, for probably a 5-year period, the best drummer on the planet for alternative music. 99 to 2004, Joey Jordison is just untouchable as a drummer for metal, and he didn't just perfect what it meant to be a metal drummer. He redefined what we thought could have been possible inside the confines of a metal song. There are things that Joey Jordison did in those few years that I have never ever heard anybody come anywhere near to. This not the obvious stuff, the double kick work and the tom fills and all that sort of stuff. But you listen to the hi-hats on Disasterpiece, listen to the snare rolls on Eyeless, listen to the slow building drums in Skin Ticket on Iowa, listen to the Blister Exists, just from start the Pulse of the Maggots. Listen, obviously duality is the obvious one. You think of the baseball bat and all the percussive elements, but in between that is Joey Jordison's incredible little drum fills and intricate little stylings in between. Listen to the opening on Welcome with the little cymbal shots in between the drum fills. From a resume and talent and skill standpoint and charisma, I've never met and seen a drummer that is such an intoxicating blend of all those within metal, and such an engaging and charismatic ability, where I genuinely felt that alongside Corey Taylor, Joey Jordison was the star of that band for a few years. And you look at the impact that his passing has had on people's memories, and the reminder of the role that he played in shaping the early 21st century alternative music scene is never going to be matched. I do feel that Joey Jordison is in that Dave Lombardo, Neil Peart, the class of drummer, and for the early 21st century, as SlipKnot have been. SlipKnot are the biggest band of the last 20 years in alternative music. I do think that Joey Jordison stands on some of the all-time best musicians in that period of time as well. Just a tremendous loss, and it sucks. I wish I could speak more eloquently on how this hurts, but it's really just a horrible thing to happen, to have his talent taken away like it did, and then to be robbed by a lot of his dexterity and his stamina by by cirrhosis, a form of cirrhosis that he suffered in his late 30s and early 40s, which essentially ended his career at SlipKnot and pretty much his metal career as a result. I saw a drum solo I did in 2017 for, it was Vimich, and that's during some of the struggles that he's mentioning there, and he's still absurd, still extraordinary. He's still one of the best drummers I've ever seen, even with his nerves and some of his dexterity taken away. And before that, he was peerless. There are 3 drummers in SlipKnot, 3 drummers in SlipKnot, and it was not even a debate that Joey was going to be the drummer. They already had a drummer, and then they saw Joey Jordison playing another band, and they brought him into a band that already had 2 other drummers and made Joey the central figure. Also, Joey wrote riffs for SlipKnot and helped construct some of the songwriting, had a massive role in them moving forward. This is not just a guy who plays really fast. This is one of the beating hearts of one of the most important bands we have ever had, and certainly the most important metal band of the last 20 years, and just a dramatically tragic loss.
Did you catch SlipKnot live when Joey was with them? I didn't.
Yeah, I saw them in 2008 off the All Hope Is Gone tour, where Joey came out with a Jesus crown and all that sort of stuff.
Did he
special
do
band.
the revolving drum setup? He didn't do.
Unfortunately, not. No, that was they stopped doing that on that tour. Unfortunately,
See, and that's the reason why I was going to discuss that. That traversed the mainstream. People knew who Joey Jordison was, even just for that. People know he does. People knew what he knew him for that he would like play the drums upside down, and there would be not just like for a little bit. Like there's like clips of him doing it for like 2 or 3 minutes, just like with the stage just revolving around him. Absolutely insane. It's really, really hard to actually put words to what he has given to alternative music or what he gave to alternative music. And man, just an absolute figurehead for metal in the 21st century. And you know, we were in a nightclub on last night, and Duality was on, and you mentioned Duality Just, and I said to you, it's the metal anthem of the 21st century. And you're like, yeah, it absolutely is. And I was like, look, everyone knows the words to this song. And a great part, you just mentioned, a great part of Duality is the rhythm section. And that is brought by Joey. It's just, man, how do you define this loss? You can't. It's such a massive shame. I mean, if he died at 86, it would be a shame. 46, dude.
Horrible. I mean, his legacy will live on. There are millions, I would hasten, at least hundreds of thousands of kids that have picked up drumsticks because of him.
Yeah.
That learning to play because of him and trying to base their style off him, and that music's eternal. Music's eternal, and that's the gift that he's given us. But yeah, it's heartbreaking.
Can we move on to album review, Sam? Let us start with Lingua Ignota's Sinner Get Ready. It's out on August 6th via Sargent House. It's the follow-up to 2019's Caligula. For those who aren't aware, Lingua Ignota's real name is Kristin Hayter. She's a classically trained multi-instrumentalist. Caligula, it remains today the heaviest album I've ever heard. There's no breakdowns or insane blast beats, but it's this unbelievably haunting, stressful letter to Kristin's former abuser. And the way she delivers certain songs and their subject matter, it's difficult to sit through. I've never actually finished the album in one sitting. It is too much. It's, you know, I listen to Caligula, and it genuinely affects my mood. It's a horrible album to listen to. However, it is an incredibly important and moving piece of music. And sometimes that's like kind of an exclamation point behind what great art does. Great art makes you feel something, does it not? And Caligula absolutely is an album that kind of evokes emotion from whoever listens to it. It's a very, very troubling, difficult sit through. That is, I'm never going to attempt to listen to that album in full again. I just know, because I can't do it. It gets me too miserable. And you come out of that album like really kind of hating yourself. So with that said, I was like legitimately apprehensive about coming into this record. I had no idea what to expect or to what depths my emotions were going to travel to listening to it. I'll say, Sam, that kind of similar to Pupil Slicer's Mirrors, though obviously not texturally the same, I don't feel like this record or any of Lingua Ignota's music is made to be enjoyed as such. Not in the sense of it's a bad performance, but more in the sense of what it evokes from you when you are listening to it. I don't think it's made to be an enjoyable experience. So next week, we're going to review Slaughter to Prevail's new album. And I can tell you now that won't be nice music, but it will be fun to listen to. This record is not made to be fun. And that is an unusual experience to have, isn't it? I mean, first thing we should say, this is unlike anything we've reviewed on this podcast so far. We've never done anything like this before.
No, this is not left field. This is a field unto itself, isn't it? In terms of the way that it's written and the style that it is. It's part concept album, part alternative folk album, part pagan ritual.
Yeah.
Sort of cross between. And I agree with you. This is not meant to be an entertaining, enjoyable listen. If this was a film, it would be like Midsummer,
Yeah.
where you just meant to sit down and watch it and just experience stuff. If this was a work of art, it would be like one of those modern art pieces where there's like blood on the carpet and stuff, and it's just entitled Him or something, and there's like a whole plethora of things that make you feel certain stuff. This is, yeah, it's a tough one to review. This is because you have to suspend your instincts when you're listening to this, because the easy thing to say after listening to this album is it's not enjoyable, ergo it's not good.
Yeah.
I didn't enjoy it, therefore it's trash. And that those two things are usually not mutually exclusive, because, you know, we review based on our opinion. If I don't like it, I'll say that I don't like it. I didn't enjoy this, but I don't think I'm meant to. So it comes to the follow-up question: was this successful? You know, in what it aimed to do? And for that, if we rephrase it that way, she absolutely achieves what I assume she's attempting to achieve.
Yeah.
Which is create a piece of music that successfully tells a haunting, creepy, and at times genuinely unsettling narrative that strikes at the heart of Middle America, religious fanaticism, abuse, and religious hypocrisy, and ideas of sacrifice and cleanliness, and all the sort of stuff that she's touching on, told with sort of like this cruel American dark humor. That part of it is incredibly successful. It's dark and it's haunting and it is unsettling. At times I feel that it's a touch repetitive. At times I feel that the styles of songs that she's chosen appear to live into two categories, which is the almost spoken word piano backdrop and the pseudo folk sort of dark country aspect, and that happens a little bit further down the album, with some moments of occasional sort of austerial beauty. She's clearly an incredibly talented performer. She's got a very haunting voice. So I think this is successful at what she's attempting to achieve. I do wonder, however, beyond making an artistic metaphor or a societal point, what the target audience is, though.
That is a good question. I could not tell you.
Would you see this live?
I don't think I'd pay £25, but if it was if she was at a festival, I would. I think it'd be quite an experience.
Could you? I can't imagine this going down. I can't imagine this going down well at a festival. Can you imagine? Because I think she'd need to be in an internal venue full of people that already know what to expect.
Yeah, yeah.
If you put her at like 4:30 on like on a stage somewhere outside, there'd be people tapping their shoulders, being like, "What is going on?"
Yeah, well, obviously,
What
she'd
is-
definitely need to be in a tent. This wouldn't work in an open arena setting.
So this is the thing. So it's a strange one to review.
Yeah, it's difficult to review.
Did I enjoy it? No. Did I like listening to it? No,
No.
I didn't. I didn't. None of these songs have replay value for me. I'm not going to be searching out many hands. I'm not going to be listening to the Order of Spiritual Virgins in my own time. I'm not. It's just unsettling. It makes me feel uncomfortable. But she's not written it for me to enjoy it. She's not written it for her audience to enjoy it. She's written for her audience to experience it. She's written to create this narrative, and at times and at moments that is incredibly impactful and thought-provoking and interesting. I recommend everybody listens to this once, say that they have,
Yeah,
to be able to talk about it and see the extremities of what music can be produced. But there's a practical and rather cynical side to me that thinks, if it's not enjoyable and it's not got a clearly identifiable target audience, and I wouldn't recommend it to other people, even if it's important and impactful and interesting, is it ergo good. It's a hard conversation to have, and one that I'm still clearly, as you can tell, wrestling with at the moment. I don't know if this is a good album or not at all. I don't know. It's successful at what it does, and does that by definition make it good? I don't know.
I tell
Honestly,
you one thing. I tell you one like really positive thing about the record for me. It does a lot with a little. Does that make? Do you know what I mean there?
yeah. There's the musicians in here, like three.
Yeah, but it always sounds huge,
Yeah,
and it
they're
always sounds
atmospheric.
like there's a lot going on when really that there isn't. There's like an instrumental minimalism to this
Mhm.
album that gives it like a real horror house vibe. If Quentin Tarantino did a film about Christian evangelism, this album would be the soundtrack to that film.
Vince McMahon should hire her to write music for Bray Wyatt.
Yeah, coincidentally, he just got released, but that is a good point though. Yeah, I mean,
And
like,
it's that kind of vibe.
yeah, if Quentin Tarantino did a film about Christian evangelism, this album would be the soundtrack to it. And you know what, dude? It sounds like we're really kind of copping out here. Is this good or not? For Lingua Ignota, like we talk about what's the target audience here. I think that's like trying to figure out what the target audience of the metro is on the bus, and they can't tell you because it's like people that use the bus, I guess. Because Lingua Ignota, she her following is completely through word of mouth. I heard of Caligula because I saw people on Twitter being like, "Oh my god, this album Caligula! Like, how you try and get through this, try and sit through this," and then I heard Riot Act podcast talking about it as well, and then I went into like the Noizze chat and I was like, guys, there's this album called Caligula and I've never heard anything like it. And then they were all listening to it and like, wow, you're right. I've never heard anything like this. Literally, like her entire, not entire fan base, but a large portion of her following is through word of mouth. So it's really hard to
So is it?
say.
So is the music and songs written for shock value then? Is that her intended
Oh, dude,
purpose?
Caligula had to be like obviously Caligula would have been this cathartic experience for her to write this letter to her abuser. Good lord, it's not cathartic to listen to. I tell you that, but like for her when she was writing Caligula, it had to be with the idea of shock value in mind. Like surely when you listen to some of the songs on Caligula, this less so. This I think we should make that point. This doesn't sound anything like not. It's not completely separated from Caligula, but it doesn't even approach Caligula's extremity. This album doesn't, and but there are still moments on it that make me feel really really uncomfortable. You know, I Who Bend the Tall Grass, where
Yeah.
out of nowhere she starts like. Can't remember the lyric. Take hold of my gentle axe and split him open. She starts like really screaming it like out of nowhere,
Yeah.
but not screaming it the same way like a metalcore vocalist would scream. Like a really dark, nasty, like frightening scream. And I'm listening to it like this is terrifying. And
Yeah.
and those kind of things, like, dude, if people thought Black Sabbath's debut was scary in 1970, imagine if they heard this. They
I
would be
know. I know.
sleeping. If they heard
I
this in
know.
1970, people would not be sleeping.
I wrote to my notes. This is meant to be enjoyed but survived.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
just to get through. So in that, all right, in that circumstance, so it's a really strange thing. We should stop seeing this as an album. This is not a piece of music. This is a work of, it's an artistic expression
Absolutely,
featuring
yeah. That's good.
featuring some music. Um, in the same way that some art is difficult to look at, but he's making an important point.
Yeah,
In that circumstance, from that rationale and that framework, it is eye-opening. It is compelling. I mean, at no point are you bored
no,
listening to this. It's engaging. It's enticing. You listen to it and you think, oh, you need to find out more about it. It's mysterious. It's enigmatic. It's wrapped in layers of just a combination of sort of horror and this. I think there's some like ironic humor going on about this as well. I think there's a dark humor with some of the little voice notes that you hear at the start.
Mm.
I think there's a touch of wit and sarcasm about it, from a very very dark place. And yeah, I think music like this needs to exist. I think it's important that it
yeah.
does. And I think that there's tremendous value in it to a certain type of audience, to a certain type of person that wants music that is challenging, um, that wants music that he's interested to listen to, that sounds like nothing that I've ever heard, that touches on some of the darkest corners of our society and tries to present them in a way that is tough to swallow and provide a challenge to an audience. And for that, this is very successful. You're right that Lingua Ignota is going to be based on word of mouth. It's going to be based on, oh my God, you need to hear this, you need to check this out. And that is just a valuable spreading mechanism than, oh my God, this band are incredible and really enjoyable, really fun and whatever. It's just a completely different emotion and vibe that you're tapping into. In the same way that you'd recommend a documentary about horrible crimes, like, you know, like a Ted Bundy style biopic. You watch it because it's interesting, because it's enjoyable. You watch horror films not because, well, some people enjoy horror films. To be fair, they enjoy the thrill, they enjoy the fear, but there's also like a pleasure to be taken from witnessing these sort of dark acts, while also removing yourself. And if you listen to music and you want to feel that way, and you enjoy the thrill of being exposed to strange settings and sounds and sensations without actually having to fully immerse yourself into them in the way that the performers themselves have, then this is really important for that. So as well, think that on a side note, she's doing a cracking job for independent female vocalists and sounding and being powerful and brave and courageous, and I'm assuming stringing this whole thing together and pushing her ideas and all this sort of stuff. It's a fantastic symbol of what can be possible with the depth of courage. It's not in my wheelhouse. I don't think it's aimed for me. But I thought it was an important listen. It's absolutely engaging. It's absolutely compelling. It's really dark and completely unique. And we don't we review a lot of bands, and we were just speaking last week about how, you know, we've been down this road before with Expand, and we were talking about Sleepwaker, and we were saying that, you know, maybe in 2017 we'd feel differently. We could be doing this for the 10 or 15 years. I'm not going to hear another band like this. I'm not going to hear another album like this. And that in itself is enough to pull people in. And you need to be of a certain disposition, of a certain mindset, to enjoy this. But it is just a valuable piece of art and artistic expression as any other. I mean, metal, alternative music is designed to be controversial.
Yeah.
Right. Just because it's not packaged in the way that we're typically used to, that doesn't make it less valuable. So I think this is incredibly successful at what it aims to achieve, or what I assume it is intended to achieve. It absolutely does that. It's incredibly atmospheric and really dark and really interesting.
You mentioned immersion there. I think that's a really interesting point to discuss about this album, because when you listen to Many Hands, I spoke about this earlier, there's not a lot going on Many Hands, but I don't know if you picked up on this. There's a kind of like pulling, tweaking sound on like the guitar strings, and it gives off this effect that I was listening to it. I was like, I've never heard anything like this before. This is
deliberately out of tune guitars as well.
Yeah, I was like, this is really, really strange. And you know what, dude? When would be the best time for someone to listen to this album? Because you shouldn't listen to this when you're driving, because you need to pay attention. But man, when you sit and pay attention to this album,
you also might drive into passing strangers.
It's really unsettling. So it's like, when is the ideal time for someone to sit down with this? There really isn't one. This album is purposefully a challenge. I mean, there are two songs on this record that I feel like, in the confines of this album, in the context of this album, are like kind of conventional. The Sacred Lineament of Judgment and the Perpetual Flame of Centralia. That 1-2 are really powerful, even in their like quite drawn back and passive nature. And they're probably the most standard sounds on the album in terms of vocal delivery and structure. But it's still got that underlying sense of doom and pain that's really like obvious. This album, there's underlying messages that you need to uncover, but it also kind of puts the idea of pain and torment and distress right in your face and like pushes you right to the edge of your comfort level with it. And it's one of those albums that you made a good point. Could we recommend this? Do you know I could recommend this? It's in the same way as I can't recommend Caligula. It's a very important piece of music. Caligula is that I feel that everyone should try and experience. But I couldn't recommend it.
This album, but I like it. No,
yeah,
that's the conversation. You won't.
But that's, I guess, Sam. What we're discussing here is this is a very effective form of art, isn't it? This album.
Yes,
because
effective is a good word for it. It's effective.
It forces an emotion out of you, and that's what great art does. It makes you feel something, and you could put someone who is the archetypal target audience for Radio 1 and enjoys easy listening pop music, right? That pays no attention to alternative music. You could sit them down and play on this album. And even as someone who hasn't got any interest in alternative music, this would evoke a feeling from them. It forces emotion from you. This album does, and
this would be horrifying for a pop music fan.
Oh God, yeah. I mean,
if you just listen to Radio 1 your entire life, and then you sat down with this for an hour and a half, I think you'd need therapy.
Yeah, but it would draw an amount. I think it would draw an emotion out of anyone. This album, and maybe like you said, maybe it's like, let's just stop. Like, we're going to review Lorna Shore in a minute, and we're going to review that as a music piece. This is like, we're talking this as like an art form, and I think this is, whether this is a good album or not is difficult for me to say. I didn't enjoy listening to it. I can't sit here and say it's not a good album. I think Lingua Ignota and Kristin's performance vocally is quite stunning. Her range and the effect that she can have with her voice is really, really moving. So I think I'd have to say that this is a very good record and a very good example of someone who's got unbelievable creative talent. She's a fantastic multi-instrumentalist, and she's obviously classically trained, which obviously helps this album a lot. But this is effective art and not something I could pull someone to one side and say, oh, you like Nightwish? You should listen to Lingua Ignota. There's no artist that someone could say they like for me to then say, oh, you like this artist? Maybe you'd like Lingua Ignota. Actually, I say that. There's a couple of like kind of dark folk artists like A.A. Williams. So maybe if you like kind of black metal folk or dark folk, maybe that would be a link into Lingua Ignota for you. But for the most part, there's not many bands or artists that someone could mention to me that I'd then pull them aside and say, hey, if you like them, check this out.
You can imagine the Spotify recommendation be like, do you enjoy Internal Darkness and Skull Crushing Misanthropy?
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
It's that sort of thing. There's a type of emotional disposition where people enjoy feeling unsettled.
Yeah.
Well, it's why people go to those like really horrendous like torture experiences.
Yeah.
Right. Where there's like, they know that they're not going to die, but they enjoy the feeling of thrill and horror and pain and torment. And people like being taken to the extremities. And I think this is the musical equivalent to that. This is a really, or it's not a tough listen in the sense that I couldn't get through it, but it was unsettling. I'm glad I didn't listen to this with headphones. I'm glad I didn't do it that way. I just on a normal speaker and just sort of listened along to it, because I really think it would have been a rather uncomfortable experience.
It is because I listened to it with headphones. It is.
You know what? The closest thing I ever heard to this when I was growing up was Scissors and Prosthetics on the album. And it's I remember listening to that on headphones and just reading the lyrics and just being like, what is this? I didn't enjoy it, but it was like so compelling. It was strange, because it taps into something internally, and there's a place for art that does that. I'm glad that we don't give ratings anymore, because I wouldn't even know how to start with this.
God, where would we have been?
I'd have to genuinely, like, I don't know, like, I'd have to just have it unrated, like, because it's not. How do you rank it against anything else? It's one of one. You know what I mean? Like you have to rank it against other Lingua Ignota albums. So that's an interesting question. Then I'll put it to you. Caligula is obviously more difficult to get through. Is this better than Caligula at the thing that they are both attempting to do?
Oh man.
I realise even that's a tough question.
No, I'd say that I'd put Caligula over this album, not in the sense that this album. Oh, it's difficult. Like I'd put Caligula above this because Caligula is like the unmovable force. It's the unstoppable force meets the immovable object. Like Caligula is. It's this beast of emotional torment. The message that it gets across, and Christine Hayter's ability to discuss in detail her experiences with her abuser.
It's more personal retelling rather than this like separate concept that she's attributing herself onto.
Yeah, but like the way that she delivers it is just horrible. It's horrendous. I've never ever experienced anything like it before in my life. I'd probably be saying this. Not in terms of it being horrible or horrendous. Had it not have been for Caligula, I would probably be saying to you, I've never heard an album like this ever. The only reason why this isn't like a huge surprise for me is because I'd heard Caligula. The reason why I put this album for us into review is because I thought, right, well, Caligula was this really like upfront, in your face, insane album that was artistically unlike anything I'd heard. I'd love to know where she's gone from here. And this is a more drawn back, haunting affair, and it's nowhere near as in your face. But it's still very confrontational, especially emotionally. I would put Caligula over this purely because you think this draws an emotion from you. Dude, listen to Caligula. I can't describe it. It's horrifying. It's horrifying.
Gone dark outside. I'll have to wait till at least tomorrow morning.
Yeah, wait till tomorrow morning. Chuck Caligula on. Although the time of day doesn't really matter, dude. It's horrible. It's a really, really difficult album, but very like it's artistically incredible. Like how it's been delivered and how she's thought of it and how she's
catch me weeping on a bike ride tomorrow,
or just like stood sat in the middle of the road listening to it. Or like the way that she has taken her torment and put music to it, which artists do a lot, of course. It's like a cathartic exorcism for them, but for her, she speaks about real specifics. There's no metaphor in it. She talks specifically about her experience during the abuse, how her body felt during certain periods of the abuse happening to her. It's horrendous. So like I would put Caligula over this in terms of the emotion that it brings for you and its effectiveness as an art form. But I think this is an effective record that is very good, creatively intelligent. She's an incredible vocalist. She's got such a stunning range.
Yeah, she is.
This is one of those things where like I couldn't recommend it to people, but I think it's something that if you're into alternative music, you should experience at least once. It's like riding the Pepsi Max. You know what I mean? You should experience it at least once in your life, whether you're scared of heights or not. Just experience it once.
I would compare it more to like the Imperial War Museum.
Yeah,
well, it's like, are you gonna enjoy it? No, do I need to see it? Yeah, this is unlike anything I have ever heard, and I'm unlikely to hear again until the next Lingua Ignota record that I'm assuming we're probably going to review and have the same head-scratching, baffling conversation about it. Yeah.
Was that the most useless review we've ever done, Sam? It might be. We couldn't even tell anyone whether it's good or not.
Possibly. Can you imagine the PR listeners of this be like, do they even like it then? I don't know.
Amazing.
Not a clue. We're really sorry.
I didn't think I'd ever say this, Sam. Let's talk about something more positive, and it's a deathcore band. How about that? Lorna Shore's and I Return To Nothingness. It is out on August 13th via Century Media Records. Lorna Shore are absolutely one of the best bands in deathcore. Unbelievably talented. We had actually their guitarist, Adam D'Amico, as a guest on the previous Kris Meets of the podcast. And he's a great guy, really talented guitarist and really cool to chat to, he was. And they've had some absolutely like awful luck. Their original vocalist, Tom Barber, left and was replaced by CJ McCreery. They released this really, really good album called Immortal in 2020 with CJ doing the vocals. Then allegations surfaced around him. He was removed from the band. And since then, they were kind of stuck in a state of limbo. And, you know, you had to wonder exactly what the future was going to hold for them. I always thought they would search and get another vocalist in. But such horrendous luck and such a short time span of that horrendous look to take place in, you just think, you know what, if these guys think, right, we're done, I would understand. But my God, Sam, with Will Ramos at the vocal booth now, what an EP this is. This is really, really brilliant. I love this EP, mate.
If this was an album, this would be the album of the year.
Mate, this is absolutely incredible. This EP is. 3 songs.
Will Ramos is Satan.
He is what an astonishing vocalist. 3 songs long. One of them is To the Hellfire, which has been out for a few weeks. And, you know, To the Hellfire was immediately the talk of the town because of like the unbelievable, borderline hilarious extremity of it, especially in that final breakdown. But I went into this EP, Sam, kind of hoping that at the very least, it would give me a reason to be optimistic about Lorna Shore's future. But actually, Sam, I've never been more excited. This doesn't just make me optimistic. This is like, oh my God, Lorna Shore. This is the best Lorna Shore I've ever been. When they do an album of this, they're going to be the best band in deathcore. And imagine me saying that. I was literally saying a few weeks ago, nothing better than Lifeblood by Brand of Sacrifice. But then I was thinking, Slaughter to Prevail, I've got an album coming out, that might get really good. And then it's like, Shadow of Intent might drop an album. And then it's like, if Lorna Shore do an album, we get this point where it's like, man, who should pick your fighter for deathcore? Because there's about 6 or 7 bands that are all amazing and all seem to be hitting their peak and hitting their stride at the same time. And
completely agree. I think I've never heard an album as an EP as good as this, where I've immediately been able to match it up with the Shadow of Intent record from 2 or 3 years ago, where I'm immediately thinking if this was an album long, it'd be like neck and neck. And that's how good that is.
The horrifyingly heavy breakdown of To the Hellfire obviously did the rounds on social media, and as awesome and cool as it is, I was kind of worried that one breakdown might end up being all that Lorna Shore can be remembered for from this EP, in the same vein as if you mention Shadow of Intent to someone who pays attention to deathcore but isn't like someone that would like trawl through it like me and you do, their response would be, the band that did the Heretic Prevails. And you'd be like, oh, yeah, but there's so much more than that. Do you know what I mean? And because of the way that To the Hellfire was picked up and everyone talking about like the snort and the horrible sound in the breakdown and stuff, I was worried that that's all that Lorna Shore would be pigeonholed into the band that did that breakdown. But mate, this EP is phenomenal. And the orchestral opening of the title track on I Return To Nothingness. Wow, mate, how stunning is this EP, man?
Incredible, absolutely incredible. What this does that completely blew me out of the water is it's obviously crushingly heavy. That's a given. We've all heard to the Hellfire. You mentioned that was like a social media sensation because it did really sound like we were torturing like a ghost or something that was going on in the background. It was just absurd. But there's real melody and beauty here, and it molds perfectly with the blast beats and the fast-paced nature. This really is deathcore at its absolute best, where it starts to merge into like new wave of black metal and a little bit of melodic death metal and a little bit of symphonic death metal, and all those sort of tangential ideas sort of converge together in this one sort of sound. But on top of that as well, the chorus is huge.
Yeah.
The breakdown is fantastic. The guitar solo is incredible. The opening guitar solo on that first track is just mind-blowing. Immediately just blowing anything else out of the water in terms of what you expect and what you've come to sort of expect from a typical deathcore song. It contains every element that you want to hear from deathcore and death metal, but it seems to do it at just a completely different rate, with a polish and a sheen and just a real craft. And I felt the same way with the next song, Of the Abyss. The alongside the musicianship, what really, really stands out is that these songs are meticulously and beautifully structured, really, really, really well pieced together, just utterly stunning to listen to. I've never really heard a deathcore album that is so immediately, or the EP, sorry, so immediately easy to latch onto, so immediately engaged and compelling. Now, we love Shadow of Intent, we love Humanity's Last Breath, and even like bands that we reviewed that are sort of tangential to this, like Cognitive and things like that. We love those, but you have to give those a couple of listens to be like, oh, this, then this, and this. I've never heard a band where so much is going on. It's so easy to follow.
That's a
Like
good
there's
point.
a really clear blueprint, but not in like a formulaic kind of way, but like I don't know how to describe it. It's like easy to follow chaos. Like it's really, really well ordered and structured, and really, really, really well written, from start to finish, to the point where obviously the vocalist is insane. Will Ramos is one of the best vocalists for this type of music I have ever heard. But he doesn't carry this album. He's just one cog in a terrific cohesive unit, because the guitar work is sensational. The atmospherics are amazing. The drums are obviously a given. It's a deathcore drummer. I mean, he's a machine essentially.
Austin Archer, yeah, he's brilliant.
You know, we keep saying the ceiling just keeps getting raised and raised and raised in terms of what is capable, what is acceptable, and what is required for this type of music. Now is just the ceiling is just higher than it has ever been. It's utterly stunning. But what really makes it stand out for me is every deathcore band on the planet can write a breakdown. Can you write a song? And
Yeah.
Usually I get, all right, here's the breakdown, the bit that we really like, and here's some other stuff that fills time before it starts and after it finishes. And it's just sort of, I'm just waiting around for the main riff. And we've said this a few times, you know, where like we kind of just feel like we're just getting back to the breakdown, and that's once that's happened, it's like we're kind of just repeating ourselves. It gets a little bit mundane. These are well-written songs, of which breakdowns and deathcore growls and mosh calls are parts of, rather than me feeling that it's like the sole thing the whole song is geared around, and everything else is just killing time. And I think that's really going to separate Lorna Shore, because, like I say, I always talk about Shadow of Intent as the bar for me, because I never really was a massive symphonic death metal fan at all, and I adore that album, and I really love that band now. And because of the way that it's packaged, produced, and written, it's immediately engaging and compelling, and is good enough to pull in different types of metal fans, such as myself. And I get the same vibe here. Lorna Shore are a band that you could show someone who does not like death metal or deathcore usually, and I feel that they can entice a metal fan in. I think if you're a massive fan of a collection of metalcore bands, if you're a big Alpha Wolf guy, or Knock Loose, and you're like hardcore, or you're like Employed to Serve, I think I could show you Lorna Shore. I do. And there's elements that you'd enjoy that also would be, you know, entry level stuff into elements that you'd enjoy of other things as well. And I think that would open up for you. And those bands are so important for the scene. Obviously it's a 3-track EP, so that has to be contextualized. But if they could produce an album of like where 8 out of 10 of the songs are in the neighborhood of how good these 3 are, we are absolutely talking about an album of the year contender, and one of the best albums of the last few years. That's how good these 3 tracks are. It's astonishing,
mate. The way that the orchestra of the title track is used as like a melodic hook is genius, because it's pushed against the raging deathcore that's behind it. So it's this really, like you said, it's really easy to follow. It's got this real hook and cleanliness to it, even though it's this horrifying, scratching deathcore rager. Will Ramos immediately makes his presence felt on the EP, like on the title track. And the way the synths and orchestra act as like a backbone makes the sound massive. Like, I think this is the best produced deathcore effort I've heard in, mate, years. It's definitely up there with Melancholy by Shadow Intent in terms of production. The way this has been produced, mate, it sounds absolutely
It's pretty well
huge.
produced as well. I'll give a shout out to Isaiah and Humanity's Last
Yeah, Asia's Lost is really well produced. Austin Archer's kick drum, it sounds amazing. Like, it's unbelievable. Like, the moments where it slows down and he does like a kick drum or a slam on his snare, it sounds massive. Like, it is literally gonna. It sounds like, well, I thought my headphones are gonna blow up. It sounds that loud and tight. You were talking about Of the Abyss, mate. I love a gospel choir in deathcore. I do.
Yeah,
I love a
but the
gospel
thing
choir.
is, when it's done well and doesn't feel cheesy,
it's so
and
effective when used right. Yeah,
absolutely. And the same with the symphonic stuff. Sometimes I hear it and I'm like, oh god, here we go. And I don't feel that at all. Like it added colour to the music and depth, and was not, it's not overused. It's not there for the sake of it. Honestly, man, this is stunning.
Mate, people are going to lose their minds when they hear this EP. I'm certain they're going to be.
To the Hellfire, I think, is the third best song on this EP.
Oh my god, I was literally going to say that. Like, I was worried that To the Hellfire that it was Lorna Shore throwing the most extreme thing out there to try and get attention on them, and the rest of the EP wouldn't be up to scratch. To the Hellfire is the third best song on the EP. The title track is one of the most stunning deathcore songs I've ever heard. It is absolutely incredible. And To the Hellfire is a great song. And the closing breakdown is literally an extremity level that I've never experienced. But it's the third best song on here. And that is saying something. That is saying something.
Absolutely. Three 10 out of 10 songs. Just across the board, from musicianship to songwriting to structure to impact, production to everything. It's honestly, like, there is no flaws from what a deathcore song can be, should be, could be. This ticks every conceivable box. It's perfect. Do you like extreme metal? Yeah, well, this does everything you like about extreme metal, as well as you've ever heard it. It's got the technical lead mastery. It's got the deathcore breakdowns. It's got incredible massive choruses. It's got symphonic elements. It's everything. It's the whole table has just been taken. It's mate, I don't even know what more to say about this. This is a deathcore roller coaster, man. This is just extraordinary.
Lorna Shore, mate, have just become, for me, the most exciting band in deathcore.
Yeah,
because what follows this, the album that follows this, is gonna be the most sought after thing in deathcore. Like, you know, like Slaughter to Prevail, which we're reviewing next week. It really feels like there's a hype and a real energy and a real momentum behind them. Mate, imagine when Lorna Shore decide to follow this up. This is that album is going to be the most sought after thing in deathcore. It's going to be huge because this EP is going to blow people away. And Adam D'Amico said in like the press notes that we got sent with the album, with the EP, that like, because of the situation they were in, where it was like, are we even going to be able to carry on? They decided to just throw everything at the wall and just try ideas they've never done before, like the orchestra, like the gospel choirs on the track Of the Abyss. And it's genius. It's amazing. I can't say enough about this EP. It's absolutely incredible. Lorna Shore are the most exciting band in deathcore right now because of this. Whatever follows this is going to be absolutely huge. And I'm so happy for them because they've always been brilliant and they got dealt a really tough hand. But the way they've come back from receiving that tough hand to build this, it's the best thing they've ever done. Will Ramos is the best vocalist they've had. Adam D'Amico's guitar has never sounded better, and that is saying something because he's an incredible guitarist. This is amazing. I'm so excited. This is incredible.
Completely agree. I think it's as well. It's a lovely symbol of a band being rewarded despite the misfortune that they've experienced, and it's a testament to taking risks.
Yeah.
If you believe in something, you want to try something new, go for it. And that they are, at the moment, I think, well, we'll be reaping the rewards of this when this becomes mainstream and this becomes heard around the alternative world. That day on Twitter is going to be really interesting.
August 13th, Deathcore Twitter is going to talk about nothing but this EP. And you know what? Good for Lorna Shore, man. Good for Lorna Shore. They so deserve this. amazing. What an EP. What an exciting, amazing band. That is where we're going to leave off episode 76 of the Noizze Podcast before my interview with Jamie Mathers comes in. We are going to be back next week. We are going to be reviewing the new Slaughter to Prevail album, Costalon. So Sam, as excited as we have just been listening, talking about Lorna Shore, mate, I'm really excited to hear to Costalon because me and you are big Slaughter to Prevail fans, and I'm very, very interested to see the same thing for Slaughter to Prevail, like I was talking about with Lorna Shore's To the Hellfire. Everyone talks about Demolisher, don't they, for Slaughter to Prevail. Demolisher is their like duality for SlipKnot kind of thing. So I'm curious to see if Costalon can be an album that is more than just Demolisher and other songs surrounding it.
Yeah.
So that is going to be next when we'll release. Well, this is going to come out. This episode is going to be out on the 3rd of August. So I am going to release the Slaughter to Prevail review on the 10th of August. So we are going to be back on the 10th of August, our Slaughter to Prevail review. Thank you as always for your listens. Really, really appreciate that. Follow us on Twitter at Noizze Podcast. Subscribe or like or follow, depending on which service you are using for your podcast. Thank you very much. My interview with Jamie Mathers from Dude Trips comes up right now. Thank you for listening. We love you and we'll see you in 2 weeks. Bye. So I'm there joined by Jamie Mathers of Dude Trips, a band that I've listened to for years, man. I'm so buzzing to finally chat to you, mate. How are you getting on, man? Thank you for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Yeah, I'm buzzing as well. I've been doing all right. Yeah.
Mate, it's one of those things like I tried to speak to you, or one of the band went through Love and Death came out, but like you guys, I couldn't get hold of you, and you were so busy around that time. Like I couldn't manage to fit in with like the PR and stuff. So I'm glad to finally get this chance to talk to you. But it's one of those things where like I might only be getting this chance because of the pandemic, right? Because you're not as busy as you would have been if the pandemic hadn't happened. So it's like a catch-22 thing.
Yeah. I think I actually remember we tried to set up something around Through Love and Death.
Yeah.
But I think it was on the release day or the day after.
Yeah. Nightmare, mate. To be fair. It was one of them.
We were on HMV and then we played our show later, so it was all a bit hectic.
Mate, for me to have even tried to get it around your EP release was that's stupid of me. That is, why would I even try that? But hey, better late than never, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
To start this off, like I've always been quite fascinated in terms of where you guys are from. Because like I like to think I'm from Wolverhampton, right? So like, and I think that Wolverhampton is this kind of small, ignored city, but Wolverhampton's got a population like 250,000 people. You're from like Fraserburgh, which is like 13,000 people. Do you? Because I feel like Wolverhampton is ignored, but we're like a city with 250,000 people in. So like you living in with like 13,000 people in this small little town in the northeast of Scotland. Do you feel like really isolated from any possibility of like real change because you're so far away from everything?
Yeah, definitely. There's like, it's a bit small-minded here as well. So like, for us to be a band and get out there, like the music we play, we head to Aberdeen. Is the closest place. Then it's like Glasgow and whatever. But like recently, well, pre-pandemic, it's been all right. We've been welcomed quite well in Fraserburgh, like just like the local boys, you know. But it has been quite difficult, especially to start a band. It's difficult here, because the main place you go straight to is Aberdeen and get shows there.
I was speaking to Ross from Cold Years when their record came out. Now I forgot where he said they're from in Scotland off the top of my head, but it was somewhere where like he said basically if you don't like this, but if you like in Fraserburgh, from what I've read up, it's like if you don't like shellfish, it's gonna be difficult for you here because like you might like that's one of the main like imports and exports, right? And he was saying that like because of that, where he was from in Scotland, not necessarily like shellfish specifically, but there was some like kind of industry that was really popular where he was from in Scotland. And so if you're not interested in this, people can't understand that you could want to do anything else. Like, oh, you're in a band, why would you want to do that? You could work with shellfish. Do you know what I mean? Is it like that in Fraserburgh?
It used to be quite a lot like that, but it is changing now. It's either like you go offshore or you're in the fishing industry, really. It used to be more like that. But I think it's more accepting to everything now.
Has Brexit played any part in do you think in the idea of possible people expanding their minds and accepting that there's more to life than shellfish or something like that? Has Brexit played any part to your knowledge?
Not that I know of. Obviously, in the fishing industry and everything, it's affected that.
Yeah.
But I don't think so. To be honest.
I'll come back to you in a few years and ask you that again and see see how it lies there. In a sense, like, do you feel like the small community feeling was kind of vital to the existence of Dude Trips though? Like, do you feel like the kind of that disconnect from a real city where you will see things changing quite regularly? Do you feel like that disconnect helped kind of birth the inspiration for the band to come together?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, so we just, I don't know how you would say it. Yeah, it definitely helped us come together and try and push out of our hometown, I guess.
Yeah.
But then I don't want to slag off my hometown
Of course, yeah.
Because now we have quite a big following here as well.
Yeah,
which is always nice.
Was it one of those things where like you guys came together in a room and it was like, oh man, like we're in this small town, it'd be great if we could break out, and that was like the main one of the first inspirations to really like try and break out of your hometown? Again, not to criticize your hometown, just talking about the idea of breaking into something bigger than this small town in the northeast of Scotland.
To start with, it all just came down to like there were three of us. We didn't have the drummer at the time when we started. And the actual goal was just to play a show at the venue called Tunnels in Aberdeen, because we had been going for so long, for so many years, watching bands, and that was the only really goal we had, was imagine we got to play in that stage, so let's try and do it. So I guess it was like break out, do that, and whatever came after, we were happy with. So
you've probably had this or will have this in several interviews to come, but living in a small town throughout the last year, have you witnessed a stronger sense of community? Because I can honestly say, living here, that I mostly haven't really. I haven't really seen, apart from we all came together kind of and saved our local like metal nightclub. Or like a load of us donated, raised like nearly 20 grand for it, which has really helped it out. Apart from that, I haven't really noticed any real like sense of community or any kind of improvement to the sense of community or lack thereof that I felt 2 years ago. How about in Fraser, brother? Because it's a smaller town, do you feel like there's been a real like uplift of community spirit in the last year?
There definitely has been, yeah. With raising money and doing stuff for the town, there's definitely been a lot more of that, especially over the pandemic. Yeah.
That's awesome, man. Like, because I don't know what that's like, really. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I get you. Yeah.
It sounds like a bit of a strange question, but like one of the things that really drew me to do trips, like when I first started listening to the band, is that a lot of the time, like I really understand what you're saying, what you're trying to get across, and sometimes I've even experienced what you discuss myself. So for you guys, when you get to the writing process, does it have to feel real to you? Like, do you feel like you could ever write about a concept, or for you, does it have to be something that you felt or have experienced to be worthwhile putting down?
Definitely agree with, we have to experience, it has to be like a real life story that we write about, or else we can't put 100% into it, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've always been like that, and I think we always will as well. It would be very difficult to write like a concept idea.
I think it was you that I saw say this. You were in an interview talking about 91, and that was a song that lyrically you'd had in your head for a while, but you hadn't like put a song to it. And then, you get sent a couple of riffs and you're like, oh, I think this would finally work. When we talk about You're the Reason I Ain't Leaving, I'm assuming that both Leaving and Gentle were both experienced more recently, and we'll discuss the lyrical content of those songs later. But was 1964 a similar process to 91, where someone's had that song in the head for a while? Or was it like a more spontaneous decision to add to the EP once you knew you were going to write something new?
definitely had that for a while. Like, not the song per se, but the idea of writing a song about it. It's just one of them again, like 91. Just didn't know how to put it into words, like get it out my head. And it was just writing one day, and then it just all spilled out. I love it when that happens as well.
Do you know what? I was going to ask you this, like, because that's obviously quite an uplifting, cathartic moment for you when it finally all comes together. But for you to kind of sit on the idea of, oh, I really want to figure out a way to get this across, but not be able to find the way to get it across, mate, that must be like so tiring, like to have this idea that's just sitting there cooking and you're just waiting to find the right thing to get across. Is that tiring that you want to say something, but you're figuring out the best way to say it and that's a struggle?
Yeah, it is. It can run you down, like 100%. I'm sure like Sean's the same, Sean, the other singer. But I mean, when we have an inkling of idea, I'll either like show Sean, he'll show me, and then we'll kind of spur each other on as well. But if we're not doing that, then it's definitely really hard. Like, brain's just like.
And then once you do get to that, but like when you finally got that process for 91 down, were you like, this is the best feeling in the world that I finally managed to, obviously the content of the song is quite dark, but what I mean is that for you to finally get to that point where it's like, right, this works for this song, I can finally say this now, that was like really cathartic for you, is it?
Oh, 100%. Like, just that feeling of like, it's finally there, finally got it out, what I needed to say. It definitely helps.
If I remember correctly, Sad Boys was in 2017.
Sad Lads.
Sad Lads, Sad Boys. Yeah. Sad Lads in cool. 2017. Since then, you've had a lot of studio experience in 4 years. And usually the cycle comes, a record comes out every 2 years. Was there any particular reason you went down the EP route again for You're the Reason I Hate Leaving? Or was this like you wanted to get like an introductory effort for them records before you go away and write a full length?
We actually recorded it before, like we spoke to Ven Records.
Ah, right, okay.
Yeah. We had we were like chatting about like what we should do next, whether we should do an album, EP, and then we just wrote songs. And I think we just had enough for an album. But instead of putting out an album with some songs where maybe like, does it fit or is it good enough? We went down the route with let's make the best EP we possibly can.
You're a band that like is pretty much still in their infancy, right? You know, despite all the studio time that I've just mentioned, we're only one full record in, and I'm sure we've got more to come. You've just alluded to the fact that we've got more to come. What has the progression been like in terms of you as musicians and people, but in general between Sad Lads and now? Have you felt a progression every time you've gone back in the studio?
Yeah. I mean, every time we write is different as well. We try and change it up. We try new things all the time. And I think that helps us grow as band and people and writing together. Because like the first EP was written just three of us. And then second EP, drummer was properly involved. And then he brought more at the table and just everyone pitching their ideas as much as possible. It's definitely helped us grow.
What I kind of like is that as a listener, like I can see you guys, because you were like kids pretty much, like when this first started, you were like early teenage, like late teens, early 20s and stuff. But then when Through Love and Death came out and I listened to documentaries, I was like, that song, I was like, I totally get this. Like this song makes so much sense to me. I understand every single thing they are saying. And that must be so cool for you to kind of, you're growing up with kind of your fan base as well. So they really get it. Like they understand exactly what, like documentaries, I'm sure you wrote that song about me. It must be so cool for you to be like, you know that your fan base, they get it. They understand because they're experiencing this with you. We're growing together. Like,
yeah, like almost all of our songs are kind of like give that feeling of someone whether it's one person or 100 people, can relate to. And when we play live as well, like it really shows. And it's a great feeling that we're maybe not helping someone, but like at least they know how it is, you know. And yeah, it's good. Yeah, love that.
Wanted to fast forward a little bit because we haven't really spoke about for You're the Reason I Hate Leaving, which is a tremendous EP, by the way. Congratulations, love it. I knew I would.
Thank you so much. Thank you,
mate. Palola, I feel like more than any other track, that is a real showcase of the musical progress that has been made. And that's not to say that there was progress that needed to be made because for Love and, Through Love and Death wasn't good enough. What I mean is, like, there are song ideas in Palola that I've never heard you guys do before. There's like, it's got that classic uplifting emo vibe that you guys have pulled off on every release, but it's also got this like huge punk rock clean chords that really move your sound forward. And when I first heard it, I was like, wow, this is so cool. They've gone down like a real punk rock route here. What was the process of putting that track like together? And did you guys feel like that track's like a real spotlight of where you've come or how you've got here?
Yeah, like that was one of the first ones we demoed, and coming off the back of our last album, we wanted to try like do something different, not like, oh, let's just make the songs that are similar to the last one. And so it's Sean's idea. It was his whole idea, and we all added to it. And like the topic is kind of opposite of what we usually write. Like we usually write breakup songs, sad songs, and this is like a getting with someone song, like a new relationship.
Yeah.
So I think we thought, like, let's spin it on its head because it's already spun, and try new things. And we actually thought that was going to be the first single as well when writing. But yeah, it's a banger.
Mate, I love that you haven't done it as a single because, mate, people are going to not know that song exists. So they're going to listen to that and they're going to be like, wow, this is so cool, man. Those punk rock clean chords that come in are so wicked. And I didn't see it coming at all, man. So, because I've been listening to you for a few years, to experience that is so cool. I was absolutely hyped, man. When I heard that song, I was like, this is so sick.
Oh, thanks, man. Appreciate that.
I mentioned earlier that I wanted to come back to Leaving and Gentle, the two songs that kind of bookend You're the Reason I Hate Leaving. I'm assuming those songs are about Sean's pet, judging by the video.
Yeah. Both of them songs are about his dog, yeah.
Yeah. So like, and this interview is about me, it's about you, but like, I lost a pet about a year and a half ago. Every emotion that gets described in that song, just like on documentaries, is something that I remember and can relate to. Like, I've never before or never since felt heartbreak like I felt on that day. Off the top of my head, I can't think of many tracks by any band that has openly discussed the loss of a pet, which is, considering it's an experience that most of us go through, I'm quite surprised actually that not a lot of bands seem to like discuss it. Obviously, it was Sean's pet, so obviously you, in terms of the lyrical concept, you wouldn't know that exactly how he was feeling, etc. But for you guys, was it like Sean's come to you and be like, listen, man, I really want to write a song about this, and then you guys like, right, you just take it away, you write the lyrics, it's all on you, and we'll just find something that fits around what you are trying to say?
Yeah, that's exactly what happened. Like, he didn't even come to us and say, I need to write this. Like, I already knew he was gonna, like, it was something close to him. And I remember some of the lyrics getting thrown to me like now and again, but I didn't want to chip in at all because I felt it was too, so I just left him to it. And he came, I think it was the last one that was actually demoed just a few days before we went to record, and it was just everybody scrambling in ideas in that day or two. And I think we coming to write that song, I think we complemented it rather than throwing in all of our ideas. We just wanted to make it as just nice, you know what I mean?
I feel like you know, losing like a pet or like a loved one, obviously, like there's really not many worse things you will ever experience. But like, you know, I do feel like you truly learn something new about yourself coming out of that experience because of that. And because obviously Sean's got something that he wants to say, like you said, was there like a kind of unspoken agreement that we're not going to try and chip in, we're going to leave it to him to get across what he wants to get across, and we're not going to try and input?
Yeah, that's exactly what happened, really. Yeah.
Just as we kind of start wrapping things up here, like, you know, you spent the last 4 years as a band being really really open about the emotional experiences of a young adult, like, and I really feel like there's not many bands that I've listened to that really capture my understanding of the emotional experience of a young adult better than yourselves. And because there's so many songs that you guys have written, they're like, I totally get exactly what they're saying. The older people get, the more experiences they encounter, and the more their perspectives change. Do you see yourself as a band? I know this is difficult for you to say because I'm asking you to kind of look into the crystal ball and make a guess. Like, but do you see yourself as a band who in 5 years would be writing songs about being in the 30s, like the Menzingers do, like picking up your current writing style and just carrying it through the ages with yourself? Do you see that as the process that you would probably take and go through?
I haven't really thought about that far, but if I was to try and think, probably it would have to be like stuff we're going through at the time that we write about. I think we'll always do that, but we're big fans of the Menzingers as well.
Oh, they're amazing. Love the Menzingers.
Yeah, they're great.
It's perspectives are really important, isn't it? Because like your ideas of the emotional experience of a young adult will be totally different to someone else's. However, I do feel like there's something really capturing about the idea of us all experiencing the same kind of things around the same time. And for that, like when you get that emotional connection and you see that come across live, like I'm not musically talented at all. I just love talking about music. So I can't imagine how great it must feel. Like we you know, I'm sitting there and saying, dude, I totally get documentaries. That must feel like so like liberating when like, not because it's me, just any fan that's like, I really understand what you're getting across. I can't imagine anything's more liberating than that. Just so buzzing to know that someone's got it and and you've helped their experience. Like,
yeah, definitely. I mean, it's like trying to say something no one's listening, but then when they say I get it, it's like finally you've listened. Like, not in we need them to, but it's just a relief. Like, oh, like nothing better in the world. Good feeling.
Just as I said, we're going to start closing up in a second. I've started to ask you questions again.
No, carry on.
But like, in like the press notes for the EP, something caught my eye that you were talking about, like the lack of like help for people mentally, people living in Fraserburgh. And we kind of spoke about this at the start when I was talking about, do you feel isolated? Now, like I said, Wolverhampton, help isn't great here, but it does exist. Big city, 250,000 people. How bad is that in Fraserburgh? Is it literally like if you need like mental help in any way, it's a real challenge?
There is help in Fraserburgh, and I don't think it's not the organization that helps people. It's not their fault, really. Like, it's just there's very little of them.
Right.
And I also think what comes into play is a lot of people up here, they're very like, they wouldn't ask for help.
Ah, right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's a real struggle, like, to open up, especially where we live, I think.
So is it more of, so it's like a 50% problem with resources and a 50% problem of not enough people are speaking up for them, for those in charge to know that they need more resources? Is it like 50-50, those scales balance perfectly?
Yeah, that's what I would say.
Well, that's something that like we would hope would change with the times, right? Because I don't know about you. I'm 28. dude.
Yeah.
Like 10 years ago, I don't remember anyone talking about mental health.
No, me either.
It was
It's
like,
crazy.
dude, like when I was in school, it was not a. It was obviously I knew what depression was, but it was
Mhm.
not a conversation. I didn't even know what it was. Like it was really like it's a new conversation, is it? So we would hope
Yeah.
that our children's children
Mhm.
would have a much better setup because we've kind of been the generation that kind of pushed that through. It's the same thing, I guess, like in terms of the early 1900s, there was no like housing. Like, so that
Yeah.
generation had to go through there being no housing for us to
Mhm.
be able to enjoy housing, kind of thing. I
Yeah.
would hope that our children's children would have it better. But
Yeah.
dude, by the sounds of it, people have got to speak up
Yeah.
in Fraserburgh for that to change.
I agree, and it's sad when they don't, and there's not enough time to help. But I'm sure with the times it'll get better, and the resources can only get better as well, as much as we push it.
Do you, and promise, I seriously, this is where we're going to leave off. But do you, like, after what we've discussed and everything, do you feel like actually Fraserburgh is probably the perfect place for dude trips to have existed from because of the way the how you spoke about your previous experiences, the way the
Yeah.
band has been birthed, what the band talk about? Actually, there's probably no better place for you to have come from, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's made us who we are and what we've been through. So without what we've been through, there wouldn't be a Dude Trip song. So
Amazing.
I would say
Dude,
it helped.
I am going to now put you through the same thing that I put every guest on the Noizze podcast through, which is what we call the quick fire round.
I've listened to this before.
I'm just going to get my brilliant, so you know what's coming. I'm going to get my timer set up here, so we can see how you do. Clock, stopwatch. Right, okay, dude. So brilliant. You already know what's coming. 20 questions, multiple choice. See how quickly you can make these choices, mate. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Let's go. Batman or Superman?
Superman.
Tea or coffee?
Tea.
Chocolate kept in or out of the fridge?
Out.
Your favorite Dude Trip song?
Right Now, Gentle.
My Chemical Romance or Taking Back Sunday?
My Chemical Romance.
Soap operas, good or bad?
Bad.
Would you rather be too hot or too cold?
Too cold.
The hardest Dude Trip song to write?
Through Love and Death.
Best live show you've ever seen?
Green Day, Tea in the Park, 2005.
Oh, I love that. That sounds like a wicked one. Best live show you've ever played?
Through Love and Death release show. I'll go with that.
The band member that's most fun to be around in the studio? You can say yourself if you'd like.
Mitch, our drummer.
Your favourite band?
Series.
Marvel or DC?
Marvel.
Love it. Panic at the Disco or Fall Out Boy?
Fall Out Boy.
Jeans or shorts?
Jeans.
Your favourite album of all time? That's a bugger. This one gets everyone.
All time.
Yeah. Or maybe like your favourite one right now that you're blasting, if it's difficult for you.
Favorite one right now is Hold an Absence, new one.
Oh, wicked. Such a great album. Harry Potter or Lord of the Rings?
Harry Potter.
Netflix or Disney Plus?
Netflix.
Your favourite takeaway food?
Pizza.
And the best advice you could give someone?
Don't do drugs.
Mate, you're not last, man. Everyone worries about coming in last. Like, seriously, everyone's like, oh, man, I didn't want to come in last. I'm like, dude, I remember, like, it's literally like a league table that I've made up. Dude, you did well then, man. Also, that is the best life advice I give as well. Don't do drugs. Stay away from that mess. Good Lord. Dude, this was so cool to finally speak to you, man. I've been a fan for a few years, so this was absolutely wicked. I'm absolutely devastated, mate, that your next tour is not around Wolverhampton. Your closest place is like Manchester, man. And I think the day that you're playing is like, I think is it the 14th? You're in Manchester, I think I saw something like that. think it was like the 14th of August with Junior that you're in Manchester, and I don't think I can get up there, man. So, dude, eventually when you play like Birmingham or Wolverhampton, I will be there, man. I'll try and meet you guys because your music's really helped me, man, at through certain points in my life. So this was wicked. Thank
That
you
really
so
means
much,
a lot, man.
mate. And congrats on You're the Reason I Hate Leaving because it absolutely bangs, man. I'm so proud of you guys.
Thank you so much, dude. I appreciate that.
This is wicked, mate. Thank you.
Right.
See you later, dude.
Bye.